Top stories this evening. President Dr. Mohammad Muiz strongly condemns the deadly terror attack in Kashmir that claimed the lives of 26 people. Government announces a detailed and actionable plan to implement all development projects. And President expresses confidence that the long-standing dollar shortage in the Maldives will be resolved by 2027.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to PSM News in English with me, Abdullah Ahil. And now the news in detail. President Dr. Mohammad Muiz has strongly condemned the deadly terror attack in Kashmir that claimed the lives of 26 people, marking the region's worst civilian assault in a quarter of a country.
In a message posted on social media, President Muiz said he was deeply saddened and shocked by the horrific attack in Pahalgam. He expressed solidarity with the victims and their families and reaffirmed Maldives' unwavering stance against terrorism, saying the government of Maldives remains steadfast in its condolences with the victims and their families during this difficult time. The attack unfolded on Tuesday afternoon when gunmen stormed a popular tourist area in Pahalgam, opening fire on crowds with automatic weapons. According to a police-verified hospital list, all 26 victims were tourists, mostly Indian nationals, along with one Nepali citizen. Kashmir, long known for its stunning landscapes, has seen a tourism boom in recent years. In 2024 alone, the region welcomed around 3.5 million visitors. But this latest tragedy casts a dark shadow over its rising popularity as a tourist haven.
President Dr. Mohammad Muiz announces that the government has developed a detailed and actionable plan to implement all development projects outlined in his presidential manifesto.
In a message shared via his official WhatsApp channel following a cabinet working session held earlier on Tuesday, President Muiz described the meeting as successful and emphasized that a clear, comprehensive roadmap has been finalized to carry out the administration's top infrastructure commitments. The cabinet working session, which included ministers and managing directors of key state-owned enterprises, focused on sharing progress and aligning strategies for major development initiatives. Among the organizations that presented updates were State Trading Organization STO, Waste Management Corporation, Venaka Corporation, Road Development Corporation, Maldives Transport and Contracting Company MTCC, and Maldives Water and Sewerage Company MWSC. The President stressed the importance of adhering to project timelines and called for transparency and efficiency in execution. He also directed agencies to address challenges raised during the meeting and to actively share progress with the public to ensure accountability. President said that these development projects are central to the nation's progress and they are committed to seeing them through. He urged all stakeholders to maintain momentum and deliver results in line with public expectations. The session also served as a platform to identify and address potential bottlenecks and enhance coordination among ministries and public enterprises.
President Dr. Mohammad Muiz expresses confidence that the long-standing dollar shortage in the Maldives will be resolved by 2027, with citizens gaining access to foreign currency at official bank rates.
Speaking during the first episode of the new podcast, Spot On, President Muiz addressed key concerns raised by the youth, chief among them the persistent foreign exchange challenges. The President said the dollar issue will take time to resolve, but if the measures that the government is implementing go as planned, he is confident of overcoming the issue. The President added that by 2027, they should be able to access dollars at the original bank rate. He emphasized that the tourism sector has already begun regularly depositing dollars into banks, a move he credited as an encouraging sign of progress. The government is continuing to support these efforts and remains focused on long-term sustainable solutions. President Muiz added that they have introduced several steps to systematically phase out the black market for foreign exchange. A new foreign exchange law enacted at the beginning of this year mandates that all businesses earning revenue in foreign currency must deposit it with banks operating in the Maldives. Under the regulation, tourism businesses must declare a per capita amount for each tourist, while non-tourism enterprises earning more than $15 million annually are required to deposit at least 20% of their foreign income into local banks. The president noted that this policy aims to increase transparency and boost dollar reserves within the formal banking system, thereby narrowing the gap between official and black market rates. As the government continues to implement its economic reforms, President Muiz reassured the public that improving access to dollar remains one of the administration's top priorities.
Minister of Tourism and Environment Ibrahim Tariq stresses on the need for preparedness to mitigate the effects of climate change on water and sewerage networks in the atolls. Speaking at the launching ceremony of the Emergency Response Plan for Water and Sewerage Services, Minister Tariq said 133 islands in the country currently have water services, while 144 have sewerage networks. The minister stressed on the importance of maintaining these systems safely, adding that this emergency response plan was vital to ensuring the uninterrupted provision of water and sewerage services. He pointed out that due to the country's geographical dispersion, the utility networks in every island need to be managed separately, urging residents of each and every island to always be prepared for emergencies. Noting that islands are heavily independent on water and sewerage networks, the minister warned of the dangers posed by the ever-increasing climate disasters, adding that one of the biggest challenges faced by islands is the flooding of sewerage networks due to heavy rainfall. In addition to sewerage networks, Minister Tariq also stressed on the need for islands to protect their water sources in the face of such disasters. Minister of Homeland Security and Technology Ali Ihsan has issued a stark warning to drug traffickers, urging them to stop before the law catches up. He says the government is determined to rid the country of drug abuse and trafficking once and for all. During Tuesday's parliament session, Minister Ihsan said the current administration has made significant progress in tackling the drug trade, which has haunted the nation for over 30 years. He said the government has already dismantled major trafficking networks through targeted raids and arrests, and emphasized that enforcement will further intensify once the proposed anti-drug legislation is passed. The minister highlighted Fuvahmulah City as a key success story, where authorities claim to have destroyed the island's largest drug network. Ihsan warned traffickers to cease their operations immediately, vowing that this administration will clean up the streets and make a major impact before the end of its term. The Maldives marks 13 years since the Domestic Violence Prevention Act came into force, a major milestone in recognizing domestic violence as a criminal offense. Since the act was signed into law in April 2012, the country has made significant progress in tackling domestic violence. The Family Protection Authority, established under the act, has led the charge with a range of initiatives. These include nationwide training programs across 15 atolls, targeted at police, schools, councils, and health workers, along with the introduction of a victim-centered handbook and risk assessment tools to improve how cases are handled. In 2023, legal aid services began, supporting more than 40 victims. An emergency fund was also launched to provide financial relief to survivors, and rehabilitation program for perpetrators was introduced in partnership with Maldives Correctional Service. However, challenges remain. The FPA says limited resources and lack of anger management services hinder long-term solutions. To address this, key amendments to the Domestic Violence Act are on the current administration's legislative agenda, aiming to speed up justice and improve accountability from a victim-centered perspective. The Family Protection Authority says strengthening legal frameworks and support systems is essential to ending domestic violence across the country. The Ministry of Finance announces plans to construct 12,040 housing units across 57 islands, marking one of the largest nationwide initiatives to date.
The ambitious project, which covers islands from north to south, initiated at the request of Ministry of Construction, Housing and Infrastructure, will be executed on a design and build basis. The ministry has now released the official requirements for interested parties as the selection process begins. According to the announcement, the distribution of housing units will vary across islands. Fewer than 100 units will be built in 20 islands, 100 units in 12 islands, 150 units in 2 islands, 200 units in 9 islands, and more than 200 units in 14 islands. The ministry confirmed that the procurement process will follow international competitive bidding ICB procedures in line with national finance regulations. All relevant details, including technical requirements, evaluation criteria, and financing models, will be outlined in the pre-qualification documents. Bid openings will take place from 11th May to 15th May, starting daily at 10 a.m. as per notices published in the Official Gazette. These include guidelines and instructions for the submission of proposals. This large-scale housing drive is part of the government's broader commitment to improving living standards across the country. The 2025 national budget reflects this priority, with 2.8 billion rupiah allocated to the housing sector. Of that, 1.8 billion rupiah is specifically earmarked for social housing projects. The government has described the housing program as a cornerstone of its pledge to provide affordable and adequate homes for all Maldivians.
Masjid al-Nabawi's Imam, Sheikh al-Budair, praises the Maldives' efforts to promote and strengthen Islamic values as part of his ongoing official visit to the country.
Sheikh al-Budair arrived in the Maldives on Monday and has since participated in a series of high-level engagements. On Wednesday, he paid a courtesy call on President Dr. Mohamed Muiz at the Presidential Palace, where the two leaders held extensive discussions on strengthening bilateral relations and advancing religious cooperation. Following the meeting, Sheikh al-Budair met with Minister of Islamic Affairs Dr. Muhammad Shahim Ali Said and senior officials from the ministry. He also held a special session with members of Supreme Council for Islamic Fatwa, during which they discussed enhancing the processes and practices involved in issuing religious rulings or fatwas. In addition, Sheikh al-Budair visited the historic Friday Mosque in Male and spent time engaging with local children from preschools. Notably, he also met with prominent Maldivian Islamic scholar Ismail Muhammad, who holds the distinction of being the first Divehi scholar to be awarded an honorary doctorate from the Islamic University of Medina. The Minister of Islamic Affairs told PSM News that the Sheikh's visit reflects a deepening of the brotherly ties between Maldives and Saudi Arabia. They emphasized that Sheikh al-Budair has expressed strong support for President Muiz's initiative to elevate religious education and spiritual well-being in the country. The ministry stated that Sheikh al-Budair has deeply appreciated the efforts made by the government to strengthen Islamic values and education across the nation. His encouragement has been warmly received by the public, the ministry added. As part of his visit, Sheikh al-Budair is scheduled to lead Maghrib and Isha prayers at Salman Mosque on Thursday night, followed by Friday prayers at Islamic Center in Male.
Addu City Council has put up 25 land plots for lease from Midu for the use of small businesses and industrial work.
The City Council has issued an announcement saying that the bid registration is open till 7th May, with the opportunity open for registered sole proprietors, companies and partnerships. According to the announcement, land plots ranging from 1,000 acres to 12,310 acres are up for lease. These include 2,000-acre plots for swimming pools, 6,900 acres for general businesses and restaurants, salons, service centers and fuel storage. In addition, there are 5 plots of land more than 4,500 acres for industrial purposes, including construction, carpentry, woodworking, heavy vehicle rental and warehousing. These include plots between 10,000 and 12,000 acres. The City Council has also included land lease for the construction of a sports and recreation centre in Meedu. Interested bidders are requested to register for the bid by filling up the information contained in the Gazette notice and emailing it to finance@adduscity.gov.mb. The deadline is 7th May at 2 p.m. The opening of bids for these land plots will be held on 21st May at 10 a.m.
In a major crackdown on big tech, the European Union has imposed hefty fines with $570 million on Apple and 200 million euros on Meta, marking the first penalties under its landmark Digital Markets Act.
The EU fines could stoke tensions with US President Donald Trump, who has threatened to levy tariffs against countries that penalize US companies. The sanctions following a year-long investigation by the European Commission, the EU executive, into whether the companies comply with the Digital Markets Act that seeks to allow smaller rivals into markets dominated by big tech. Reuters had flagged the EU decision on Apple and Meta last month.
A strong earthquake with a magnitude of 6.2 shook Istanbul on Wednesday, April 23rd, Turkey's Afad Disaster Agency said, one of the strongest quakes to strike the city of 16 million in recent years. There were no immediate reports of damage, but people evacuated buildings as the quake hit and shook the city, located on the European and Asian shores of the Bosphorus Strait. The epicenter of the quake, which struck at 12:49 GMT, was in the area of Silivri, some 80 kilometers or 50 miles to the west of Istanbul. Afad said it was at a depth of 6.92 kilometers or 4.3 miles. Broadcaster TGRT reported that one person of jumping off damaged buildings. It was at a depth of 10 kilometers or 6.21 miles, GFC said. Saudi state news arrived in Tehran for meetings with officials. The visit comes ahead of weekend talks between Iran and the United States over the Iranian nuclear program. He also met with Iran's Supreme National Security Council Secretary Ali Akbar Ahmadian. The U.S. and Iran held talks in Oman last weekend that both sides described as positive and constructive. The second round of talks is set to take place in Rome this weekend. Grinning mischievously, Juanjo Albitsu dons a baseball cap, tucks his t-shirt neatly into his sweatpants, and adjusts the Velcro straps on his elbow pads before positioning his skateboard on the ball's edge, ready for the drop.
Other skaters dressed in baggy streetwear craned their necks while the sun cast long shadows over the graffiti-covered concrete. Albitsu's attempt at a gnarly trick draws stares because the athlete is a sight to behold, wheeling around the unassuming skate park in northern Spain, having just turned 88. For the cheerful octogenarian, each skating session begins by carefully clearing the square ball of pebbles to guarantee a smooth ride. In a rapidly aging country, where more than half the population is over 44, the demographic shift is increasingly becoming a topic of national debate. Economists fret over the welfare state's sustainability when the government data shows there are 137 people aged 64 and older for every 100 under 16. But Spain's generally warm climate is conducive to outdoor activities, and Albitsu's youthful vigor is vindicated by study after study, proving the importance of physical exercise in bettering the quality of life and reducing the risk of disease for the elderly. Twice a week, Albitsu takes part in lively English language exchanges outside the bar. He relishes entertaining listeners with his exploits from the skate park. Albizu took up skateboarding age 70, partly because it was cheaper than his beloved snow sports. He finds the extreme sport more than just a way to stay fit, also offering an escape from monotony. For other people his age considering taking up skateboarding, he advises to do it little by little.
Moises Schmidt, a cocoa grower and entrepreneur in center-north Brazil, who has been investing in cocoa farming technology to expand production, secured backing from some of the world's largest cocoa traders and chocolate companies to develop what would be the world's largest cocoa farm.
The aspiring Brazilian cocoa king who wants to revolutionize the way the chocolate ingredient is produced, said Schmidt Agricola, the family-owned group that cultivates more than 35,000 hectares in Brazil's Bahia state, has preliminary agreements with companies in the commodities and chocolate businesses. The project comes at a time when the chocolate industry faces a global supply crisis, with crops in top-growing regions of West Africa facing stagnation, while demand for beans continues strong. New cocoa production elsewhere is critical to supply growing global production of chocolate. Moises Schmidt, who oversees fruit operations for his family business, started with cocoa in 2019 when his company finished an assessment on the cocoa market, concluding that there would be a supply shortfall in some years' time. He told Reuters that they didn't think it would be so quick. According to him, trees already planted in some 400 hectares are producing around 3,000 kilos per hectare, or 10 times the average yield of traditional cocoa areas in Brazil. The target is to get past 4,000. As a comparison, the average yield in Ivory Coast, the world's largest cocoa producer, is 500. Most cocoa farms in the world, particularly in Africa, are small, only a few dozen hectares. There are some large ones in Ecuador, but they are in the hundreds of hectares, so the project in Bahia is by far the largest in the world. The idea is to apply large-scale agriculture techniques to the new area, as if it were a soybean or cornfield. In recently planted land in Riachão das Neves, the rows of cocoa trees are more concentrated, with only the space for mechanization.
That's all the news we have for today. We will be back with any further updates. Until then, I'm Abdullah Ahil from PSM News.